If we take a step back, just thinking broadly historically for a few moments, what has the debate been over regarding this doctrine of the free offer?
Well, it's taken place at a couple of different levels. There was a big debate. Well, let me start here. Our Confession of Faith, the 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith, uses explicitly the language of the free offer of the gospel in chapter 7, paragraph 2. However, there were a number of Baptists, especially in the years after the publishing of the Confession of Faith, that did not feel themselves comfortable with the language of the free offer of the gospel. In fact, in men like John Gill, Tobias Crisp, others, but John Gill, there was a reaction against the way in which the Confession of Faith taught this. It's strange to say, but Gill did not adopt the Confession of Faith, which was held by the church that he came to pastor, a predecessor of Spurgeon's Tabernacle, actually, a couple of 150 years before Spurgeon came there. And Gill, although he's a difficult person to completely dissect in terms of his theology,
Sure.
did not confess the free offer of the gospel. And while not making him the only figure, there were a number of Baptists that, and are now known as hyper-Calvinistic Baptists, that denied the doctrine of what was called duty faith. And there are still successors and descendants of those people around today, and groups like the strict and primitive Baptist that deny the doctrine of duty faith. They would say, since God does not sovereignly grant faith to everybody, it is not the duty of everybody to believe the gospel. And therefore, they deny the doctrine of duty faith. And this was a big discussion around the time of Andrew Fuller in the mid-1700s, in which he defended the doctrine of duty faith against a number of Calvinistic Baptists that denied it. And so the first discussion had to do with the matter of duty faith. And of course, the answer to the denial of duty faith is simply that the scriptures everywhere call on men to believe the gospel. And they don't make that duty dependent upon whether one knows in the mysterious sovereignty of God in terms of God's decretive will, whether one has been chosen to that faith. It is a matter of their duty, whether or not they've been chosen to salvation. They are called to believe the gospel. And this was the kind of the first and basic argument over the whole subject of the free offer of the gospel. Does the Bible teach duty of faith? Men like Andrew Fuller, men like Jonathan Edwards clearly taught that it was. There was a second round of, and it's not clearly divided historically, but
Sure.
but there's a second kind of denial of the free offer of the gospel. And it comes from those who say, yes, we believe that God commands sinners to repent and believe the gospel. That's their duty, but he does not. But that command is not accompanied by any desire on God's part, or any common grace on God's part, or any general love of God on God's part, that they actually should do that. He simply commands them, and the gospel comes to men as a bare command. And again, this is a distortion of the free offer of the gospel. In fact, many who say just exactly what I've just enunciated deny the free offer of the gospel and are in denominations that historically deny the free offer of the gospel because they do not believe that the command of God is accompanied by any desire on the part of God that men should receive the gospel. And so I tend to think of this as half-step hyper-Calvinism. And I think it can be addressed, and its attempt to back away from the free offer of the gospel is something that can be refuted by simply asking the question, can God command? It's a matter, when we talk about God commanding things, it's a matter of his preceptive will. And so can God command what he does not desire? And I think the answer to that question is obviously not. And when in the scriptures, the command comes from the lips of Christ for Jerusalem to return and repent and believe the gospel, that command comes with an evident manifestation of Christ's concern and compassion for the city of Jerusalem. And so that I think is at least a brief way of addressing the issue.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because it gets a couple of things right where someone who is adopting a Calvinistic soteriology, there's kind of this idea of, okay, this objection of, well, there's total inability, right? So if a sinner's fundamentally unable to respond to the gospel due to their sin nature, how can God hold them accountable for
Sure.
not believing? And also, as you mentioned this, is it really a sincere offer, or is it just a formal proclamation? And
That's a good way of putting it.